Alright lads, or should I say ni hao, or whatever you say in Pakistan. Anyway, today we're taking a look at the Khalid, a surprisingly nice addition for the Chinese tech tree. This premium is essentially a copy and paste of the tech tree MBT 2000 with some modernization carried out. The main differences are the addition of a second generation thermal imager for both the gunner and commander, better placement of the FY2 ERA, and a slight difference to the location of the turret smoke discharges. These modernizations make the Khalid probably the most dominant tank at battle rating 10.7, officially knocking the T90A from that spot. This is due to the Khalid having the Chinese equivalent of 3 BM60 Svernets, very potent second gen thermals, and a fantastic level of mobility, something which the T90A certainly does not have. But as with all good things in War Thunder, if you want to play this tank, then you're going to have to pick it up from the Gaijin store. Gaijin not missing a chance to monetize a decent vehicle for an underloved tech tree. For the cost of $70, you get the tank, 2,500 Golden Eagles, and 20 days of premium time. Due to the tank's premium status, you also get 33 repairs, allowing you to learn how to play the tank without going bankrupt. But hopefully, being a premium, you're going to use it to turn a profit. And you're in luck, as the Khalid has a Silverline modifier of 585% and an RP modifier of 714%. Both of those statistics are with a premium account. If you don't have a premium account, then those will of course be lower. While the Khalid does use an autoloader system, I'd still highly recommend investing in at least the expert crew, which is going to set you back 1,350,000 silver lions. And for all you big buck wallet warriors out there, you can also get the ace crew for 2,200 golden eagles. The Khalid is also in great company. Basically, you have a fantastic lineup to back you up. You have the ZTZ 99-1 and the ZTZ 99-2. Very creative names there, China. You also have the MBT 2000, as we already spoke about, the ZBD04A, the AFT09, the new Antelope, which is a bit shit to be honest, as well as the ZLT11, as well as the surprisingly potent PLT02, which recently got a new powerful main gun round. For close air support, you can bring along the A5C if you want to saturate your enemy in fires, or you can take along the Q5L if you prefer a laser designated type style of cast gameplay. However, if you prefer rotary to fixed wing, you can also bring along the AH1W or the Z9WA, both fantastic Chinese helicopters, or I guess Taiwanese helicopters, located at around the battle rating 10.7 lineup. The Khalid comes standard with a woodland camo that is basically a tan desert colour with green stripes painted on top of it. You also have a quadricolor camo which doesn't really fit into any of the War Thunder maps in my opinion. There's also a winter camouflage which is more of a pale grey. And finally, you have the Pakistani armoured core camo, which in game is classed as a desert camouflage. Again, this doesn't really fit into War Thunder's majority woodland scenery, but would you really want to be driving around with the Pakistani flag on it? I don't want people thinking I'm from Bradford. Anyway, casual bigotry aside, if you'd like to learn more about this vehicle, and more importantly whether it's worth your hard-earned cash, stick around for the rest of the video. Welcome back. Now, interestingly, when the Chinese were designing this tank, they went to the Ukrainians and basically bought a license for the 6TD2, a modernization of the engine used in the T80UD, which in turn was developed from the 5TD used in the T64. The Khalid weighs 48 tons and is powered by the engine producing 1,200 horsepower, giving the tank a very good power to weight ratio of 25 horsepower per ton. This shockingly good mobility is present throughout the entire Chinese main battle tank lineup. They look like Soviet tanks, but often have similar levels of mobility as NATO vehicles. Compared to the Soviet T-72, the Khalid is much faster, both in terms of acceleration and top speed. Even the T-80s will struggle to keep up with the Khalid in certain areas. And this is one of the main benefits of the Khalid in my opinion, and that is its ability to outcompete many of the Soviet vehicles, which ironically you will be facing quite frequently. You have basically the same armor profile and the same gun, except you can outmaneuver them due to your better acceleration and top speeds. Speaking of which, the Khalid can reach a top speed of 71 kilometers per hour and a reverse speed of 32 kilometers per hour, which, as I've been saying, absolutely mogs pretty much every commie block MBT. Overall, you aren't going to be winning any drag races against the Leopard 2A4s or the Type 90 Fujis, but the mobility of the Khalid certainly is a huge positive, especially if you're used to playing Soviet vehicles. So, the survivability. This is a little bit of a hit and miss. It's kind of like the British Challengers or the American Abrams, where the places that have armor are very well protected, but you also just have massive weak spots that are easy pens. Many of my deaths in the Khalid didn't come from enemy MBTs. Instead, it was from me pushing enemy IFVs, thinking that my armor was proof against, only to be penetrated frontally by low caliber autocannons. For example, one of my deaths was from an enemy Tunguska, with his 30mm armor piercing belt going straight through my driver's port, which was surprising for me, and he did kill me and another Khalid frontally. But that being said, the Khalid does have quite thick composite armor, as well as some very potent explosive reactive armor. But first, let's start with the crew. Like many Soviet-inspired MBTs, the Khalid uses a crew of 3 men, with a driver in the hull and a gunner and commander located in the turret. This small crew means that you can't really survive taking any penetrating hit, as losing 2 crew members will result in the tank's destruction. On the upside, due to the tank's autoloader, if you do lose a single crew member, the reload time will not be affected. However, Gaijin recently modeled the autoloader system into War Thunder, and any damage to this will prevent you from reloading. If we take a look at the internal modules, basically any of these things get hit and they're gonna break. And that's the best case scenario. If some other things get hit, mainly the ammunition, well, your turret is going to Mars. Luckily though, we do have some pretty effective armor to stop any incoming rounds. Your upper frontal plate, as well as the turret cheeks, are protected by roughly 380mm of composite armor, giving you around 450mm of protection against the high tier Sabots being fired back at you. This armor is effective, especially at battle rating 10.7, but the gaps in your armor scheme are very large. For a start, the entire lower frontal plate is a gaping hole, with just 65mm of steel protecting it. As I said, this is where many of my deaths came from. IFVs such as the Puma basically just punch straight through your lower plate, and usually end up detonating the ammunition carousel as well for good measure. As I did mention earlier though, we do have some pretty effective explosive reactive armor. This is located on the hull and turret front, as well as the turret sides and rear. While the ERA on the front and the sides have the same name, the FY2, they differ in their protective capability. The ERA on the front of the vehicle can provide 120mm of kinetic protection and 450mm of chemical protection. This ERA can protect you from rush shots, as a lot of mid-tier APF-SDS rounds, such as the DM23 fired by the Leopard 2A4, will be defeated by this type of armor. As I've mentioned quite a few times now though, the coverage of this ERA isn't particularly great, only covering the upper frontal plate as well as 2 Vs on either side of the turret face. The ERA on the side of the vehicle is a bit weaker, only giving you 50mm of kinetic protection and 350mm of chemical protection. Again, the placement of this ERA isn't great, only covering the side of the turret, with absolutely no protection being given to the 60mm thick side armor. Again, leaving the Khalid very vulnerable to a flanking IFV. If the Khalid did have explosive reactive armor running down the length of the hull, it would be a substantially more protective or survivable vehicle, but then again it would add more weight and somewhat ruin the great mobility of the Khalid. Apart from the mobility, the other standout feature of the Khalid is a ZPT-98 125mm gun. This was developed in cooperation with the Ukrainians, at least I think it is, as China basically went to Ukraine after the collapse of the Soviet Union in order to get Soviet technology on the cheap. It's one of the reasons why the Chinese currently aren't helping the Russians too much, as they still want to retain a good relationship with the Ukrainians, as a lot of the Chinese tank fleet is basically Ukrainian tech. But that is neither here nor there. In game, you can carry 49 rounds of ammunition in total, with 22 of those rounds being placed in the T-72 style carousel autoloader. This means that your reload is going to be quite slow compared to most vehicles around your battle rating. The Soviet T-80s can reload every 6.5 seconds, and the majority of NATO vehicles can now reload between 5 and 6 seconds, at least the vehicles between 10.7 and 11.3. So your reload in the Al-Khalid certainly isn't going to be a major strength. In terms of gun handling though, the Khalid is pretty good. While the 6 degrees of gun depression isn't amazing, and nor is the 14 degrees of gun elevation, but I think, in my opinion, this is redeemed by the gunner and commander's optics and thermal imager. The gunner has a base magnification of 3x zoom with an optional 10x zoom. This gives you a great wide field of view for most engagements, and the 10x zoom is obviously very good for those long range shots. This means that you don't get tunnel visioned in any situation, as in close range engagements you can just have that nice 3x zoom giving you a big wide field of view. The commander has a fixed 6x magnification, which isn't amazing, but to be honest with you, I don't use the commander's imager. Both the gunner and commander get a very high resolution thermal imager, making it incredibly easy to locate enemies. It's also one of the main upgrades compared to the Tetri MBT-2000, which only has first generation thermals for the gunner sight only. In terms of actual firepower, the Al-Khalid uses the exact same ammunition as the MBT-2000, but the addition of the high resolution thermals makes it oh so much better. Speaking of the ammunition, we have 5 different shells to choose from. Our 2 stock rounds consist of heat FS and a high explosive round. These shells are free to fire, but only the DTB-125 high explosive shell is really effective, with its nearly 5.5 kilos of TNT giving it 45mm of penetration. You can also carry a variant of this high explosive shell with a proximity fuse warhead, allowing you to engage low flying targets, but your gun elevation of 14 degrees isn't going to allow you to shoot at high up enemies. In these cases, your pintle mounted 50 cal is going to be your best friend. The remaining 2 rounds are both AP FSDS rounds, and your main round of choice is going to be the DTC-10-125. This is actually China's top tier round, still used at battle rating 11.7 on the ZTZ-99A and the other top tier Chinese MBTs. It has 577mm of penetration at point blank range, and against armor angled at 60 degrees, it can still penetrate 333mm of armor. This is very similar to the Soviet 3BM67X round, and performs very well in game, especially for the battle rating of 10.7. To conclude, the firepower is the real standout aspect of this premium. It basically mogs most other high-end premiums. The majority of the 11.3 vehicles usually have a decent round and fire rate, as well as fairly high resolution thermal images. The Al-Khalid on the other hand has a fantastic saber round, and some of the highest resolution thermals currently in War Thunder. In fact, the Sabot practically makes you immune from a full up tier, as your fantastic fire control system, and to be fair, the still amazing mobility at 11.7, it still makes you a useful backup in my opinion, with the only real downside being the rate of fire of 7.1 seconds, which is quite a bit lower compared to the NATO standard of around 5 seconds per shot. As I just mentioned, the mobility of the tank far exceeds the average Russian MBT, which is one of the main benefits of the top tier Chinese lineup. The sort of blend between Russian arms and armor and Western mobility. By far the largest downside of the Al-Khalid is going to be the survivability. It doesn't really have much of it. It's kind of like the American Abrams, where it does have substantial armor, but it only really protects you from rush shots or newer players who are yet to master your vehicle's weak spot. All in all though, the Khalid is a fantastic vehicle to purchase if you're interested in grinding the Chinese tech tree. It is a much better choice than the old ZTZ-96A prototype, not only due to the better capabilities, but also the much larger choice of backup vehicles available to you, with the Tetri MBT-2000, ZTZ-99-2 and the ZTZ-99-3 also sharing practically the same armor and also firing the fantastic DTC-10 125mm shell, giving you a truly stacked 10.7 Chinese lineup. And that brings this video to an end, boys. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. As always, a huge thank you to my YouTube members, basically my producers. We've got Lol Alphonse, Tans, Deboa LX, Dr. Bob, Tomster013, Schlunty, Van Halen, Diogenes, Econ, and Tojira War Thunder. Once again, thank you very much, lads, for supporting the channel. And if you made it all the way to the end of the video, leave a comment saying Bing Shilling.